Hey, Starlene, it's kind of late at night, and I'm in here working Louie. I'm almost done with them, but I started just doing a little bit of tarp desensitizing. Um, it's a little late. Anna's already kind of gone to bed and stuff, so I didn't really want to climb on his back, so I was just looking for some other, ancillary things to do with them. And this tarp thing, it's working pretty well, but I wanted to get it on video, so I'm going to bring him over here where you can kind of see his face. Hopefully, he'll kind of more or less stay here. Um, he wants to be good really bad. He's a pretty cool horse. But he is a little scared of this, and we'll see how this goes. Last time I threw this up here, he didn't. It wasn't bad, but he just took a step or two towards me. So when he got scared, and of course now he's not going to do it because I'm on video, but um, when he got scared, he went into my space. Now it wasn't a big into my space, but it was like, oh my gosh, I got to go somewhere, and he's gonna walk into me. That means if he really gets spooked, he's gonna jump on top of whatever humans around him, and having a little kid around him, or even yourself, um, that's not the best. So, but what was cool is even with the tarp on, I was able to ask the shoulder to stand back up and move away from me. And it made him actually think and connect his brain to his feet while he was scared of the tarp. And then, of course, I took the tarp away once he actually thought. And that's the big thing about this horse. So let's see what he does here. So he just kind of tends to scare himself. Like he wasn't scared when I threw the tarp on, but then when he kind of realized it was over there and turned and looked at it, then he scared himself and he got himself all worked up. So now I'm just going to wait and kind of wait for him to bring himself back down. That's what I really need him to start learning how to do. Probably too much to ask that he'll never wind himself up. But if he wind himself up, then he needs to be able to bring himself back down. And the faster we can do that, the safer he's going to be. I like that he is actually engaging with the tarp. He's aware of it. That's the first thing. And then checking in with me. Hi. Yeah. Yeah. That tarp is still on your back. And now he's just got to kind of work through and process this in his brain. And I think a big part of this horse, the way he was started, I think he just didn't have a lot of time to process things. And that's very common. Um, I think a lot got thrown at him when he was first broken. And um, he had to just kind of just shut up and deal with it, and there's something to that. I mean, there's a time when shut up and deal with it is how you got to get the job done, but not when you're starting a horse, in my opinion. It um, maybe they need to know how to shut up and deal with it when you need them to, but majority of the time needs to be this allowing them to acknowledge the thing that's scaring them, process it, work through it, eventually, hopefully, relax, and then take away the thing that's scaring them. And I don't know how long this will take. It's up to him. I'm just the facilitator here. He's the one that actually has to do the relaxation. I love how active his ears are. His eyes are his eyes are kind of going back and forth between he'll get kind of alert and then he kind of goes, okay, no, I can relax. And then he kind of gets alert, but he's processing all of this. And normally his kind of go-to um, coping mechanism is to just think about the other horses out there and get real destination addicted. And like a lot of times he would just start walking probably right now just to get over there, which is towards the other horses. He's not really doing that today. He's kind of, he'll look at the tarp and he comes back to center and he's like looking over there. But then he's like, no, I'm not going to go over there, um, so this is really good. He's kind of like here, he's getting focused on something away. but then he brings his attention back, stays fairly here, and is processing. Good. He gets distracted, and I'll bet he'll bring his focus back here like that. Good. I know his head went up a little bit, but again, he's still trying to figure out how to process this stuff mentally. He's checking in with me, checking in with the tarp. His ears are going all over the place. Head comes down a little. He's really trying to figure out what to do with his brain right now. You see this little cycle of focus that he's got. He thinks away, at the tarp, present. Away, tarp, present. Away, tarp, present, right? And it's okay that he goes through that cycle, but he needs to learn how when he gets alert, oh, present, and fully relax. And he hasn't actually like licked and chewed, so he's not quite there. But I love how even when he looks away, he gets distracted over there, over there. It doesn't feel like his feet are going to follow it, right? It's just kind of, what's that? Oh, nothing. Okay, cool. That's a safe way. There's a big, nice blink. That's a safe way for his mind to be. It's okay to look over there. It's okay to look. I want him aware of, you know, good boy. There you go. Good. Very good. And then his reward is just taking the stressor away, and you can see he big lick and chew right there. And I'm just gonna let him have some time here to enjoy his reward. And there's kind of another cycle of he got himself all worked up. His attention went way out there, and he kind of was like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. But then he figured out how to come back to present and licking and chewing. Good boy. Every time he goes through one of those cycles of being, oh my gosh, to licking and chewing, that's one cycle of full up to down, right? The more cycles you can get him through, the more agile his brain will be. Just like doing transitions under saddle, right? If you want your horse to be collected at the trot or have a nice forward walk, I'm just going to take this opportunity to go back to the chart because he walked off. If you want your horse to be nice and collected at the trot, you do a bunch of transitions between walk and trot, right? Same thing with him. We want him to be very agile in his brain. And so we're going to do a lot of transitions between up and down. So when his feet followed his brain there and he walked off, you notice when I put the tarp back on him, he was a lot more scared of the tarp that time than he was before, right? Because his brain was leaving with his body. And then all of a sudden I was not only adding the tarp, but I was bringing him back to center. And he's like, or bringing him back to the present. Good. He's definitely aware of the tarp, but not relaxed, right? So we just wait. So he's kind of fixating on those other horses over there. And we'll just see what he does about it. Good. Comes back to present. And he's a quick learner. You know, some horses that aren't so quick learners don't figure this out, but he's figuring out real quick that when he gets distracted, he gets himself worried. And worried is not a fun state to be in, right? For humans or horses. We don't enjoy being in that worried, anxious state. So he is starting to realize that when he does that right there and gets up and tense, that that's not as much fun as just being present, more like this. Let's see if he comes back to really being present. Big scary noises outside, huh? It's one of the things you got to learn to deal with. So this is very similar to what happened yesterday um, when I went to get on him, and then I didn't end up getting on him. I was working on some other stuff, and then Anna ended up getting on him later. And I had done quite a bit of groundwork with him. Like today, I did a little bit of groundwork over there. And after the groundwork, because there's a lot of moving and your blood's pumping and you're doing all this stuff, he was he's just chill at the end of the groundwork. He's just warmed up and chill. And then when we kind of stand here for a while, whether it's saddling or now throwing this tarp over him or whatever, he hears little creaks in the building and and when he stands still, instead of just getting more and more relaxed and going to sleep, he tends to work himself up and up and up by standing still. So it's just good to know. And it's what it means really is that when he's moving, he's using that as a coping mechanism to cause himself to calm down, which is not really true calmness, right? If he's using a coping mechanism. Now he crept up into my space here. He's trying to use me as his coping mechanism. So I'm just going to back him off there and say, no, you can stand over there, not punishing, just undoing what he did wrong, which is walking into my space, just undoing that by backing him out of my space. Okay, he kind of creeps up into my space again. He says, hey, maybe if I stand closer to you, I might feel a little bit better about myself, right? Or about the situation. That's where you're going to get hurt. I know it doesn't seem like him just kind of creeping up. Good. It doesn't seem like him creeping up into my space is really dangerous, but that idea in his brain that, hey, if I feel threatened, maybe I just need to creep closer to you, that eventually is going to be him spooking and climbing on top of you. So don't allow them to do that. And it's like codependency with the human. It's not, if you're codependent, I'm not a psychologist or anything, but good, there's looking at you. I'm going to take the start off. If somebody is codependent with somebody else, you're not doing them any favors by allowing them to continue that codependency, right? You shut that off and you say, no, you need to learn to be a big boy, big girl, and cope with life on your own. And you can still have friends, obviously, and you know, I don't mind if he finds some comfort in me being here, but He needs not to feel like he has to stand right here on top of me in order to be safe in the world. Be safe in the world over there. Oh boy. Just going to do a little bit of lateral flexion. Good. I think I'll throw this tarp on the other side. I haven't done that. And he's a lot more skittish about this, anything happening on this right side than he is on his left side. So this is actually going pretty good, but I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't go as good as the other side. So, I got this tarp all kind of jacked up. There we go. And once again, we just wait. It's all about him learning how to cope with things in life on his own. I can try to help him by redirecting his attention, by deleting other coping mechanisms, things like that. But at the end of the day, the end goal is for him to learn to deal with life's stressors on his own without me. What I want is if he's tied up at the trailer or tied at the fence or whatever, and a tarp like this, there's a whirlwind that comes through, and a tarp like this blows smack into him and covers his face and his whole body. I want him to just stand there and go, it really doesn't mean anything. It kind of sucks, but it doesn't mean anything. And I'm still tied to this fence, and that's what means something. So I can't go anywhere because I'm just tied right here. That's what we want. So he's very alert. You can see those ears kind of perked forward. His head's way up. Everything's pretty tight. He's blinking, but not soft blinking, right? Just, he's tense, right? This is not really... also, you can probably see from the camera there, look at his eyeball and his ears. So his ears just flick back, but his eyes are rolled back in his socket. So at least this one, I can't see the other one. His eyes are looking back this way, but his ears are pricked that way. So I don't know exactly what's going on in a horse's brain when that happens, but when there's a disconnect like that, I don't know exactly how to describe it, but it's not a good thing. You want their attention, their eyes, and their ears kind of all in the same place, if that makes sense. That's where that pig-eyed term comes from, when you can see the whites of their eyes around. I don't think it's so much that their eye is wide. It's more that they're looking away. So like if he's looking at me right now, because I don't see any whites in the eye, so he's actually looking at me. But he could be looking at me with his head, but have this eye rolled around this way, and I would see a big thing of white here. And what it really means is he's blocking me out with his eyes. So it's like he's la 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 la, like that, basically. Now notice that he has put me on his left side where he's more comfortable. See how he's taking some steps to try to kind of put me back over there. So I'm just going to undo that. I'm going to ask him to back up and yield this shoulder over just a little bit. You don't need to back anymore. Just yield this shoulder over. There, right there. Beautiful. And then I'm going to stay over here and see how he's trying to put me back in this eye, because he's really not comfortable with me being on this side. So that's something that I'll be working on more, and then that you need to be aware of, Starling, when you take him back, that you'll need to do more stuff on this side and make sure that he can, that he's just as comfortable with you being on this side as the other side. And don't allow him to reposition his body and put you back in that eye. So he's still alert, but maybe not as alert as he was. His head's probably not as high as it was before. Now I'm seeing a lot of twitching, tons of twitching going on in his muzzle, lower lip area that we weren't seeing before. So he's, even though he hasn't licked and chewed, he's definitely not as alert and tense as he was. Now, if his attention leaves and he walks off, I'll pick up the lead rope. If not, then eventually his attention will come back to center, assuming he doesn't move his feet. So where's he going to go from this? Is he going to stay locked on over there, probably walk off? Or is he going to bring his focus back to me? Or even back to center, not really even back to me. Good. Thought about walking off, but he came back to present. Good. And he scares himself by nudging the dart. This is the stuff that his brain has got to work through. This is the maturing process. Okay, if he takes a step forward, yeah, I'm going to go and back him up a little bit. This is that whole, I'm going to push this shoulder over because he's really leaning in on me right here. There. Good. See him trying to put me back in this eye over here? You're awfully close, kind of in my space, dude. So I wasn't really like trying to hit him right there, but I basically just moved my hand like this. Like, what if I need to scratch my nose, right? And his nose was literally where this hand couldn't move like this without hitting his face. Probably a little close for him, right? If I just walked up to you and just stuck my nose into your chest like that, where you couldn't even move your hand without hitting my nose, you'd be like, dude, you're really weird. You need to get out of my personal space, right? So why would we let a horse do that? Don't let the horse into your personal space like that unless if I go up and I engage with him, okay. But, and again, I didn't go, wham, get out of my space. I just kind of said, I might move my arms like this. And if I do, I'm going to hit you in the nose. So, hey, you might want to think about like not being in my bubble, right? Some big blinking going on right there. Good. So he just kind of looked over at me, but he didn't invade my space there, right? He didn't put his nose all the way open my chest. He just kind of is checking in with me over here. And now he's blinking a lot. His eyes are way softer. Good. So basically said, hey, you need to be your own horse over there. Just like we were talking about a second ago when he was creeping up into my space. He was trying to do the same thing right there by sticking his nose in my chest as a coping mechanism. I'm saying, dude, don't be codependent on me. Like, live your own life. It's much softer now, blinking a lot more. You can see his head's quite a bit lower, still above his withers, but he's got to learn how to come from that little state right there where he just went, ooh, alert, all the way down to a lick and a chew. It probably seems like there's a lot of standing around doing nothing, and there is. And you think about horses out in the pasture or in a pen standing around. they spend 23 hours a day together. If let's say I work in 1 hour a day, the rest of the 23 hours a day, those horses are just standing there. They just spend time with each other. And a lot of horse training is just waiting on the horse. But it's not just waiting and doing nothing. You have to know when is the key moment to do the thing and where to be. And, where I'm standing right here is very, intentional, right? If he does certain things like, okay, you just rebalance there. I'm not going to do anything there. But see, there's all these things that, like, if he does this, I do this. If he does this, I do this. But at the same time, a lot of the session, you're just standing here doing nothing. So you got to kind of get comfortable with doing nothing, but staying alert in your mind and knowing, okay, if he does this, I'm going to do this. If he does this, I'm going to do that. But it takes a lot of patience because, like I said, horses stand 23 hours a day next to each other. They don't have clocks. They don't have any, you know, they don't care what time it is. They don't have anywhere to go anyway. So, it does not matter how long it takes him to get to a lick and a chew right now. The time of it doesn't matter. What matters is that he eventually gets to a lick and a chew in this setup. Big twitches in his mouth area, his lips. He's a little distracted. Let's see what happens with it. Excellent. Comes back to the present, checks in with the tarp, like, acknowledges it. Okay, it's there. No big deal. Licks and chews. Hi, you're really close to my space right now. But, I'm not too worried about that because he did just lick and chew. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this tarp for him. So once again, I'm going to work on this a little bit here. He got scared of the tarp being from that side. He noticed it on that side and jumped into my space. Now, he didn't run me over, but he still jumped into my space. And he doesn't have enough regard for the human space not to invade it. If he thinks something's scary over there, he's going to jump right through me. And I guarantee you have a little 6-year-old kid standing on the ground, he's going to go right over. So that's one thing that's left. So what's happening right now is he's seeing the reflection of everything I'm doing in that door, of himself and everything I'm doing. And so he's kind of nervous about me being on this side and seeing the reflection over there. And so everything's kind of deteriorating right here. So we're going to keep at this until he gets, finds that relaxation again. So I was hoping just to remove the tarp and be done with him for a second and let him rest and relax. But, he wound himself back up. So we keep going. So we're right back to where we started, waiting for a lick and a chew. He's way more tense than he was. And this is, again, this is the problem for me with jumping on his back right now, is that he tends to, and even in the times when I want to reward him and let him relax, those are the times when he makes himself the most up and anxious. And so that's not a safe combination to get on his back. There we go. There's a lick and a chew. All right. Good. He flinched a little, but this time he didn't jump into my space. He just kind of stood there. Good boy. So we'll do more work with that. I wasn't planning to work real long tonight. I didn't want to make this a real long video, but I just kind of wanted to get a few of those things on do some lateral flexion with him here. Oh, there is one thing I'll demonstrate for you. So this is kind of a new technique I've been kind of working on, and I'm not going to get real in depth with it, but I just want to demonstrate this for you. So a lot of the groundwork that I do with, or used to do with horses, involved getting them to disengage in their hind end, which means if these are their hind feet, disengaging is when they bring one hind foot over the other one and they step up and in front of the other hind foot. But when a horse is going to do a cow turn, which this horse, his owner wants to do, ranch versatility. So when he needs to do a cow turn, if he's facing this way and the cow's where the camera is and the cow turns that way, if he does this to turn over to the cow, that's a horrible way to go, because now he's got to come all the way around here and he's super late on the cow, right? So if these are his hind feet and cow goes that way, the better thing to do would be step back here, move your front end over, and boom, you're off to the cow. See how much faster this is than this, okay? So start watching horses' hind feet and notice when they go like this and when they go like this. Now, there's benefits and drawbacks to both ways, but I'm not going to get into a real in-depth conversation about disengaging versus stepping back. But what I do want to show you is I'm starting to do some stuff with him where basically pretend this is my rein. I'm sitting on his back and I do lateral flexion, right? Well, if I want that to be a cow turn, I'm going to pull this lateral flexion and I'm going to keep pulling and see how he's disengaging, disengaging, disengaging. I'm going to hold this right there. He stepped back and I release and just step away. And he's basically done there. Now there's a second part of this I'll show you in a second. But I want to get to where I can pick this up, and instead of disengaging, he immediately steps backwards. Now, if he had no, right there, good. If he had no future in cow work, if that just wasn't his thing, it was cow work, I wouldn't worry about this exercise. But because ranch versatility includes cow work, this is really going to set him up well to actually cut. Most of your lower level ranch versatility horses right there don't get this part of the cutting maneuver correct, and it really shows in the cutting pen. Right there, good. Now the second piece of it is once he's set back and set those hocks back and rolled over him a little bit, I'm just gonna bring his front end through, because that's the next piece of the cow turn, right? Hind end sets up, front end needs to come. I'm just gonna send him this way, boom, and their front end comes through, perfect. And you can see this maneuver is really getting him to set that weight back on his hind end. And so now he's moving around nice and slowly, licking and chewing, all the good stuff. Okay, when I ask him to stop here, I'm going to come right up here and ask for a cow turn. That's disengaging. That's disengaging. Right there, set back. Bring the shoulders through. That wasn't very good, but because he ended up disengaging there after all. But I'm not going to make a big deal of it. Just going to ask him to keep going. All right, I'm going to ask him to stop. I'm going to come up here. Ask cow turn. Comes together. There, he stepped back, but it wasn't great. There, he stepped back. Oh, there, he stepped back. Bring his front end through. Good. So just a little variation of the groundwork that we can kind of start to use, and it's just the whole thing about the groundwork is getting him focused on me. Like right now, every time he goes by that door that you can't see, it's right behind the camera, he sees his reflection in it, and he no longer is paying attention to me, he's paying attention to the door. There though, I was able to pick up on that lead rope a couple times and got that ear to flick back each time. And that's what I got to have to stay safe under saddle. I can't be riding by that door and have him go, oh my gosh, what's in that door? When I'm trying to go around the corner, and then all of a sudden he bumbles into the fence and scares himself and blows up and blah, blah, blah. Right? So we've got to do this groundwork until I can maintain his focus on what we're doing. Good. And it doesn't really so much matter what the groundwork itself is. It's just, doing. So that's why I'm incorporating this other exercise, so I don't just beat that first exercise to death, the typical groundwork. I'm going to ask him for a trot here. Good. You can see all the work we've been doing to get his body moving correctly with tying his head around is really helping. I mean, look how much softer his head and neck is. Now, there's still times where he pops it up and gets stiff, right? And that's going to stick around for a while. I mean, you just can't change these things overnight, because he's had however many months of training he had before he got here, basically all that time doing it more or less wrong. You can see when he thinks he is going to poop, he thinks he just gets to stop. Why would he keep going, right? But no, I told you to trot, so you need to keep trotting until I tell you to do something else. This is where that obstinance kind of thing that I was talking about starting to come in. All right, I'm going to go ahead and let him stop here. So I could keep working on this stuff all night. I'm going to be done with him for tonight. Like I said, it's super late. Glad I got a bunch of that stuff on video. Have any questions, give me a shout. All right, talk to you later.